This is Amrita Verma for the Wall Art TV, and I'm at a very interesting space right now. I'm at Somakshi Singh's studio, and Somakshi is right here with me. Let me just say hi to her. Hi, Somakshi. Come on over. You can just step into your work, right? Come sit. I'll get back to my trusty stool. So how did you start with this work? It's like, I don't know whether I'm in the work or out of it or what is happening.
Well, the whole idea is for the viewer to be a part of the work and to become a character within the art piece.
Take us through your virtual studio and your actual studio. I don't know what to say.
So basically the piece is called Backstage on Screen, and it's being done for Art Hong Kong. And the idea is that, the studio space is usually the backstage version where the paintings get made, and most people don't really have access to how a work of art actually gets done. And what you kind of tend to see in the galleries is the finished, final, shiny version. And so the idea of this was to put the backstage itself on screen so that people are sort of invited into a studio visit. But when they first walk in, they become a part of the first painting, and then they disappear, then they walk in again, become a part of painting number 2, and then come into the quote-unquote real space, though of course nothing here is really real, it's all illusion. Basically what it is it's the colored version is the quote-unquote real space, within which you have the canvas, and in the canvas is actually the painting of the studio space itself. And because it's a painting of the studio space, within the painting is the painting of the painting, and within that is the painting of another painting. So it's just sort of a loop that goes on to infinity. The idea being you can be a part of the painted space, you can be a part of the real space, and you move back and forth between these realities. So this piece was more about how your immediate environment is kind of what dictates what gets into your work. So I'm working on a series of installations at the moment, talking about, what are the different things that actually go into influencing or creating the painting itself. So one is, of course, your external environment, then I'm moving into internal environment, then I'm moving into when the painting starts talking to you and when you're talking to the painting, and then when characters enter the painting and alter the painting. And so there's a whole series around the making of the image. So this is part 1. And actually the thing is, I've been really interested in yoga for a long time, and the Hindu philosophy of Maya, or illusion, in which all this happens. So this is actually being based off the Bhagavad Gita, actually, where they talk about how all the different characters in it are actually, though they were historic, they represent psychological tendencies in us. And so the war of Kurukshetra is actually an internal war that's happening between our own inner nation of citizens. So for example, Dronacharya represents habit. And that's why he's the teacher of both the good and the bad, because habit is what teaches us. And then your 5 positive qualities are your 5 Pandavas, and your 100 negative qualities are your Kauravas. And so Duryodhan represents material desire, Arjun represents willpower, or Bhim represents this chakra, the life force, Yudhishthir is calmness. And so the idea, this one had to do more with Drona, and the idea of habit and repetition, and where is it that starts to become our teacher, and how do you overcome habit. And I think this is something that the art world currently is dealing with a lot, because you see a lot of work that seems repetitive, regurgitative, habit-based, almost subconscious. And the idea is, so what overcomes that in a way, and what's that dialogue internally? And so, if you read the Mahabharata, Drona was basically the hardest warrior to kill. Every single army, every single warrior went up against him, and finally he had to be tricked. He had to be told his son is dead, and then they killed an elephant that had the same name as his son, so they wouldn't have to lie, and etc. And that's sort of what we do, right? It's like, I'm on a low-fat diet, so I'm eating a non-fat fudge brownie, or I'm chewing nicotine gum, I'm not really smoking. So you kind of trick yourself into overcoming your habit patterns. So this one had to do with the notion of Drona and habit, so developing that character. And I'll be developing at least 11 characters from this series, and then there will be the final conflict and resolution between these characters that will come in. So this is the introduction as artist Drona, and then let's see who else becomes what else. I think right after my grandfather died, and we'd been so familiar with his space, and we knew the story behind every single object in this space, and then to walk into this space and have all these things that you thought you knew what they were suddenly change meaning, and having to renegotiate what they meant to you, and you suddenly start to realize that it's not the fact of the object that gives it meaning, but rather how you feel about it. And when that starts to switch, your meaning switches. And it was really interesting to me that, what does it mean to spend a lifetime making a space yours, filling it with objects in a way that's going to outlive you? So who owns what, and what is real, and how do you recognize it, and what's actually permanent and unchanging? And so this whole idea about how do we actually see things and how fragile that perception is, that from this particular vantage point, this is what I'm looking at, but if I shift it half an inch, it's fractured, it's gone. It doesn't really line up anymore. So when I'm going around creating these environments, actually the process of it is even more important to me than what ends up becoming, because the way it works is, I have a camera over there, and then I place a drawing in front of the camera on glass. So the camera looks through the drawing on glass into the actual space, and then I'm running around in the space trying to map out that drawing, tracing it in three-dimensional space. So basically, I'm mapping a version of perception that's not even true to my current location in space, because where I am, it makes no sense because all these marks are skewed. Yeah. But according to that vantage point, it makes sense. And so it's also sort of a metaphor for how much of our realities do we sort of construct based on some external viewpoint, which could be an idea of how your life should be, which could be a culturally conditioned notion of it, which could be a psychological version of it, which could be simply a physical vantage point, or when you shift location, you travel, you go to a new place, suddenly, you think, oh, it's going to be different now, and it's just, it's just trying to think of how much of what we actually create around us is based, from our center, from that vantage point, or from some externally imposed idea, which is only true in the mediated version. So on screen, you find it easy to locate yourself, whereas your direct interaction with the space is totally disorienting. And I think part of that is also, symptomatic of our culture, right? Is like, we're on Facebook, we're on Skype, we're all used to having our virtual selves, and we often try to figure out where we are through our mediated selves. There's a fight breaking out in the street, and most people will turn on the television to see what the news reporter has to say about that. And it's true, and nobody trusts the news, and yet you still go for the mediated version than trusting your direct sense.
I'm in the work of backstage on screen. So Makshi, how did you kind of decide that this was the work which was going for Art Hong Kong, and the whole conceptualization of this particular work?
Well, the whole notion of the art fair, basically where people come to see the shiny painting on display and have it be like in its final version. And I think that's wonderful too, but there's also value to what happens behind the scenes and what that messy studio is like and how something actually gets made. And so part of the reason was to actually invite people somehow into the studio. And I thought about it as an act of generosity, basically, and that's part of the reason I felt this work was appropriate for the art fair, to have people actually walk into the painting, become a part of the image, as a methodology for understanding what viewer participation, what's the value of that in the decoding of an image, and how much meaning does the viewer add to it. or how being a character or a part of it is a crucial part of the whole art experience. And then, of course, then to walk out of it into the studio space and, be a part, be the pseudo artist or have a more informal experience of the work. So that's why.
Thank you so much, Samakshi.